The Love Life and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. If you know what to do, but can't figure out why you're just not doing it, this is the right podcast for you. I'm your host, Advanced Certified Weight and Life Coach Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to think and eat like a normal eater, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Welcome back. This is episode 109. We are now into summer for sure. Today, I'm going to talk to you about your attention and how important it is for you to have some control over where your attention goes. If you do not, the cost of that I see every day in my coaching diminishes your ability to create new habits around food, which is all about weight management, right? Staying present, being mindful, that is a form of attention, right? And the world itself, and your brain in particular, has many hardwired ways of capturing and stealing our attention. Anything negative, anything outrageous, anything life-threatening, seemingly, or even just funny, right, will easily hijack your attention. Things that are highly sensory will also hijack your attention. We all know what it feels like to eat that candy bar. You are immersed in that moment when you eat it, right? So we are human beings living in a world where, highly sensory world, where the news cycle, our relationships, the people we live with, our children, the TV, the algorithms and all of our social media platforms are all trying to capture our attention. So living a 21st century life, if you don't want to be literally pulled away from what is important to you, then you have to create an idea and awareness around what allowing your attention to be captured by things outside of yourself costs you, what it truly costs you. And when you get clear on that, you will be able to advocate for and become a really good implementer of discipline over where your attention goes. I'm going to start with this morning was a great example of that. This morning, Stuart and I were at our Connecticut house. We had 14 70-foot hemlock pines cut down all along the front road of our property and leaving a big open space between the road and our fence. It's probably about, 10, 15 feet deep and about 150 feet wide. And we've just kind of put mulch all over it. And then the next step this morning was to plant the 8 hydrangea plants that we got. And I was super excited. For my birthday, you guys know, I think you know, I'm a big gardener. I asked for a high-powered drill that has this attachment, like this auger. So you hold the drill, it has an extra place for you to kind of hold it with both hands. And it just drills down into the soil, which is super helpful up here in Connecticut because we have very rocky, hard soil, which is unlike the sandy soil in Florida. That's really easy to dig into. So I have the auger, we have our 8 hydrangea, we're out by the road and we're planting. It's nice. He's helping me, which is awesome. And then I noticed my husband's Stu's attention starts to be captured by some people who are speeding down our road. I live on a very windy, narrow backcountry road. And in the country where it takes a while to get places, as is the case in Connecticut, it's just a phenomenon that people drive too fast down these small country roads. And usually it's the people who live on those streets and, are going the same way every day who kind of lose sight of the fact that you're really going too fast, right? If people are walking on the road, there's no sidewalk, there's not even a side area. It's super, super narrow. So I noticed Stu's attention starts to get completely hijacked. when he hears the car coming, he's like dropping the shovel, he's walking out, and he starts making like that old guy slow down gesture, and he starts getting mad. And after a few times of this happening over and over again, I start to notice he's making this slow down gesture even to people who aren't really speeding. So then I start to have all these thoughts about what he's doing and what people are thinking about him, kind of like policing people, my neighbors going by. And now I'm irritated that he's irritated. So I'm like, well, maybe you could just wave at the cars that aren't going that fast. Honey goes a lot further than vinegar, and now I'm involved with the focus of his hijacked attention. And neither of us are paying attention to these hydrangea or our shared experience of like planting the plants, right? No surprise. The mundane work of planting, digging, filling, you know, gets trumped by outrage and, this idea of like, this isn't right that people are going this fast. So I was like, yeah, I need to come in and record this episode because this is something I see affecting my clients all the time. An unmanaged attention has real costs to my clients, to everybody in terms of time, right? Because your attention is focused on something in every moment, right? Even if you're unconscious and you're sleeping, right? You're sleeping, that's your focus. In your waking life, you only have so many hours, right? Like time is truly the one resource that we can't get back, no matter how much money we have, no matter what we do, we truly cannot get our time back. But what is the currency of time, right? It really is where are you focused in the time that you have? Are you present for your life in the moment that you're living it, right? My clients who have anxiety, they're usually in the future worrying about something that has yet to happen or may not even happen, or they're in the past rehearsing something that they can't change that's already happened. This creates a imprint of negativity, right? A restlessness, a worry, because your attention has been hijacked from the moment that you're in right now. So, whenever we are pulled away from our present consciousness of the moment that we're in, right? That is hijacking your attention. Now, I guess in the case of my husband, he was with the cars. He was in the moment with the cars and the drivers and his thoughts about them going too fast. So he wasn't really in the future, but certainly the focus of his attention and mine on him was a negative focus. And negative things have a powerful drive on capturing our attention. And the thing is that if you're going to allow yourself to be captured by negativity, outrage, anger, righteous indignation, there are effects that come with that attention, meaning nervous system dysregulation, right? Flooding of stress hormones, adrenaline, noradrenaline, epinephrine. When those stress hormones are going through your body, that absolutely affects what your body does with the last meal that you ate. Excess calories eaten with a cocktail of stress hormones, if there is a caloric excess, right, tends to be, especially in midlife women, turned into visceral fat, which is your belly fat. So, I mean, not only in just cases like this, right? But your nervous system. I coach a lot of women who have been allowing their attention to be hijacked, either by the political algorithm on social media, right? And then they wonder why they have urges afterward. Well, your body is trying to settle itself after feeling like the gloom and doom of what the media cycle is trying to use to capture your attention. That's how they make money. They literally make money by your attention. If they find it valuable, you certainly need to find it valuable too, because what you do with your attention is amazing. You can do nearly anything if you work long and hard enough with focused attention. There's very little that you cannot create for yourself in a lifetime of focused attention. And as a weight management coach, this is what I ask my clients for. I ask them for focused and mindful attention on their bodies. Am I hungry? What percentage full have I eaten to? Right? Am I feeling negative emotions? If so, how, can I process them? And what do I need to settle myself so that I can come to the table and not overeat? Because eating is one way as human beings. Animals do this too. We can settle ourselves, our nervous system, our emotional state. And it is a huge distraction that allows the nervous system to come back into a state of parasympathetic drive, which means rest and digest. So, weight management never takes place in this vacuum. It always takes place in the context of your attention and then the imprint of the focus of that attention. So, this is why I often say, you know, when you're leaving a stressful day at work, try to have the transition on the, say, for example, the drive home, be something where you practice your breathing exercises or you're listening to something pleasurable, or maybe just you talk into the air to download your day to help your brain process the negative focus of that attention. Let's face it, many of us have a job where that's why we get paid, is to have a focus on things that stress us out or that are stressful. Stay-at-home moms have to deal with constant interaction with kids who are, difficult and energetic and obstinate and impulsive. And dealing with little humans all day long will leave you with, it is a focus that you want to have on whatever is going on with them, but the imprint of that requires a responsibility to then balance that so that you can, when you come to eat, be mindful and somewhat regulated before you make decisions around food. So, attention leaves an imprint. Wherever your attention goes, your nervous system will go. If you spend an hour in outrage, your body knows. If you spend 30 minutes worrying, your body knows. If any of you are wearing an Aura ring or some kind of Whoop or some kind of like biometric tracker, I think even Apple Watch does this now, and you take a look at your biometrics in terms of like stress and where you've been, you can see like when you are having a negative focus or a stress focus, you see the imprint of this on your heart rate, your respiratory rate. I don't even know what else they're tracking, but they can tell. My Aura ring tells me how many times I dip down into relaxed and then restored. So a stressful day for me, I will have just a very few dips into restful and restored sections. And I'll spend almost the whole day into stressed. Whether that's just working in the yard all day or if it's I don't know, something stressful that's happened in one of my relationships or something circumstantial that is upsetting for me. There's always an imprint that comes with this. And then there's when you have an imprint that challenges you emotionally, nervous system wise, right? You're going to feel those downstream effects from there, which will affect for those of us who are trying to lose weight. It's going to put pressure on some of those old habits around food to kind of settle yourself or at a minimum distract from the stress of that negative focus. So here's another example. Let's say you're spending an hour with a friend, and maybe your friend is negative. Maybe they're, just one of these like lovable curmudgeons. Or maybe they have something legitimately really affecting them and they're just talking about that. Or they want to talk about politics and this isn't something that you want to talk about. Or maybe they're catastrophizing. And you notice that when you leave their company, maybe you feel flat, heavy, or drained, and maybe even like a little resentful. The question is, how does this affect you when you spend time with this person? Is this a one-off thing? Or is this something that's just part of your interaction with this person? No shade on anybody, right? There's for all of us personalities that feel real easy breezy to be around, and then other personalities that are just difficult. And this is why, we have these ideas of like, I love this person, but it's short stints for me, like I can't spend the whole day with them, maybe, or it's just once a month, or just for the holidays, or something like that. And we do this kind of naturally with people, right? And personalities. But what I'm suggesting to you is the focus of your days, right? What hijacks your attention? And are you properly gauging the imprint of that attention hijacking on your nervous system, on your emotions, on your ability to eat in an intentional way so that you can meet your weight goals? The other thing about attention is that it's contagious. This is what I saw this morning planting the hydrangeas. His hijacked attention then became the focus of my negative attention, trying to like manage him and not come across as too negative with the neighbors by policing my neighbors speeding by the house. Negativity spreads, fear spreads, complaining is contagious. I mean, I think we all know this. Outrage, righteous indignation. We can kind of get caught up in these attention spirals, if you will. They're like their own viral algorithms that like get their hooks into us. And you have to really ask yourself, like, if I'm spending time getting caught up in this, what am I not doing? What is that costing me? When I look at what I'm losing this moment, what am I losing as I look back an hour from now? And also, like in the example with my husband this morning, he doesn't want me telling him how he should show up. So I caught myself and I said, because he was kind of pushing back on me with the whole vinegar versus honey thing. And I said, look, you do whatever you want in terms of like motioning to people going by. I just ask that we be able to finish the hydrangea and then you can do whatever you want. That kind of thing was sort of a negotiation. Like, hey, you said you'd help me, and here you are standing by the road, like playing traffic cop. You know, can we just finish the plants first? And I would like to see you consider this in your own life. If maybe it requires a conversation with somebody, a negotiation, maybe, or even a negotiation with yourself. For example, driving is another place with our significant others that sometimes this can be an issue. I see over and over and over again. And, it probably affects me when I see my husband driving and he's kind of giving out about what other drivers are doing. This guy, or look at this person, or what are they doing? And then I, of course, get hooked into that. And I realized I feel like I'm driving, but I'm not even driving. And if I'm not going to drive, I don't want to feel like I'm driving, you know? So I move into like hypervigilance because it's a negative focus. And for me, being in the car, I've been in a couple of bad accidents. Thankfully, I was never hurt, but the anticipation of things that could happen are because I have been in a couple of bad accidents. And one was involved like a truck, like I was in a pickup truck and we like literally flipped over. And ever since then, I really have a hard time relaxing, but especially if I'm not driving. uh, it's just, again, it's an attention hijacker for me. This idea that my brain suggests, like, if I'm hyper vigilant and I'm looking out for what bad could happen, somehow I could prevent that from happening. And although that is probably true to some extent, do I really want to be spending my time in the car like that? I mean, the imprint of that on my nervous system is only going to add to the default because of my trauma from these car accidents. So I have to advocate for myself. And, my husband and I have talked about this. And I think he really appreciated me just kind of telling him about these accidents that I was in that he didn't know about. Um, and I think it gives him more empathy for how it does affect me. And I've asked him to kind of leave me out of his narrative about other drivers and that he can do that alone in his head. Don't draw me into that. And, it's a request that he's happy to do. And if you guys need to do that in the car too, this is one way that you can create agency for yourself over being your attention being hijacked, where that imprint of that negative focus can affect you, the echo of it, sometimes for, an hour, sometimes like for the rest of the day. So, boundaries. Healthy relationships are not just about like negotiating chores or money or parenting. This is like about also negotiating attention. And for many of us in modern day life, we see this like I coach a lot of women who say, I'm not really into what we watch for a program. Like my husband picks it and I'm kind of happy to let him do that. And then I'm like half watching the show and half like on my iPad. I don't know. Maybe they're scrolling. Maybe they're on Substack. I don't know what they're doing. But it got me thinking, because I do this too. What is the cost? Because a lot of times when I think about how I spent that hour or two on, my iPad while also half watching a show, I didn't really watch the show. I don't really have the satisfaction of being present for the show because all of my attention wasn't on the show. And I've talked to you guys about split attention while you're eating, right? Because you're watching a program or you're even like socially when you are out to dinner with people, you're more engaged in the conversation and you never really check in with how much you're eating or how full you are, or even like how good the food tastes because the hijacker of attention is probably the person sitting across from you more than the food going in your mouth. And I talked to you about how you can train yourself to kind of toggle between the two so that you can at least give equal attention to yourself and your habits around food. And we don't have to give that up just because, we're with other people eating or we have the TV on. And it's the same with your relationships around where do we want our attention to go when we are doing certain things. A lot of times when I'm eating, I ask Stu to please put the phone down. Now, I love my husband. I've brought him up a lot in this episode. He has ADD, so he is easily distracted. And I know this about him, and I give him wide berth for that. Like it's just something that comes with being with somebody who has ADD. If you have ADD yourself, you know how hard it is to stay focused for a long period of time, especially on things that aren't immediately interesting for those folks. But, boundaries with yourself around like, look, if I'm going to watch a TV show, if it's not something I really want to watch, do I really want to be in the room? And maybe that answer is yes. And that's why I have the iPad and I like my reasons, and that's fine. But I think sometimes maybe this is just about not wanting to have the conversation about, like, I don't want to watch CSI anymore. Like, it doesn't interest me. And we just don't want to have the conversation about it. So you're kind of settling. And when you could be watching some great television shows that maybe, your partner also wants to watch. And that's worth a hard conversation. It's worth a boundary thing. What I like to say for myself is I like to talk about what we'd like to watch. And I never start a show after 9 p.m., a new show. I just don't. Well, I shouldn't say never. I try not to. Because even after a certain period of time, I'm tired and I'm not really up for like a whole nother hour program, usually. Certainly not after 9:30 for me. And a lot of my clients, it's even earlier for them. So boundaries around, hey, do we not pick up phones when we are eating together? you know, Sometimes those boundaries around where we let our attention go to can really create more of a richness and a depth for the moment that we have. And just like I said before, time is something that we can't get back. And because we're living in such a sensory intense world, vying for our attention, we're sort of frittering away our time to things that aren't even important to us. They're important to the algorithm. And they might be uh, amusing, but is it really where you want to spend your time? I think about this all the time watching kind of shitty TV. Like, think about the books I could be reading that I've always wanted to read, these amazing books that could leave an imprint on me and affect my life for the rest of my life that I'm just not reading because it's just easier to turn on the TV. Where's your attention going? The cost of that is real. Okay, let's connect it to your weight management. So think about your day. Before dinner, you've already spent your attention on work, emails, maybe worry about something or other, maybe your kids, your parents, the news cycle, maybe Instagram, what's going on with your partner, maybe your to-do list, maybe rehearsing imaginary conversations that you want to have or conversations that you've already had in the past, which can lead to resentment, comparison. Who knows? Now it's 7 o'clock. You walk into the kitchen and you expect yourself to be aware, right? I ask you this. Are you hungry? How much, right? When was the last time I ate? Am I actually eating the food that I wanted to eat? Would future me appreciate this meal? If you've already spent your attention budget and the imprint of where you allowed your attention to go, especially if it was negative, is going to compromise your ability to make some of these real time choices in your own benefit, having your own back around food. So if you have no attention left, you have no awareness, you're on autopilot, you're eating on autopilot. Autopilot is where overeating lives because you have spent all your attention on things that perhaps you didn't even want to spend your attention on. And so this isn't necessarily a willpower thing. It's a resources thing. And attention is a limited resource. We all know when we remember being in school, just like having your mind filled with too many facts or um, maybe studying for a test, like you just, at some point, you just can't pay any more attention. There has to be processing and a pause in there. And it's the same thing with anything with your attention now. Attention, focused attention on what's happening right now will cost you energy. Your brain is burning calories every time you are mindful and present with your life. And there's only so much energy we have in a day. So spend your attention wisely. Leave some reserves for those decisions around food. I talked to you last time, or maybe it was a couple of podcasts ago, about this idea of emotional sobriety. Emotional sobriety isn't just being able to sort of allow your emotions to happen. It's becoming intentional about what earns your attention that creates those emotions, right? A lot of my clients eat to distract them from how they feel. That's not, that is emotional buffering, right? I don't want to feel this way, so I'm going to eat to distract me from how I feel. But the thing is, once you're done eating, there's the feelings like a beach ball underneath the water popping back up again. So, attention comes first, right? What we focus on, what we think about creates the emotions tied to that focus, that attention, and those thoughts. Nothing else creates emotions except your focus and what you think about what's happening. Okay. Then those emotions create receptivity to do or not do certain things because of how you feel. Can you override that sometimes? Absolutely. Can you feel completely resistant to going to the gym and go to the gym anyway? Yes, and thank goodness. Otherwise, anybody who pissed you off, you would just be smacking. And thank goodness we have this ability, right? But just because you can override how you feel doesn't mean it's easy. And again, there's a cost to that, right? So emotions always come with a cost, whether that's the cost of overriding them because you want to be a good and decent human, right? Or just feeling like how you feel. So again, like this idea of focus, what you think, and then how that affects you will always create a human who either has resources for the things she wants to pay attention to or she doesn't at the end of the day. This is just basic like fuel exchange, right? So if your attention, like say, for example, lives in resentment, your resentment will grow. And if you're marinating in resentment all day, are you going to be able to kind of like make the hard decision and not go through drive-through that night because it's the easiest option? You know, you have to think about the opportunity cost, what it costs you by where your focus goes. One of the most powerful questions I've started asking myself is this worth my attention right now? And when I was kind of like mulling about Stu policing the cars on our front road this morning, the answer was absolutely not. If he wants to play traffic cop, that is none of my business. I don't need to get involved in that. I just want to enjoy planting my plants. Now, does that mean I wasn't like good with saying, hey, you know, maybe wave instead of just do the angry cop motion, you know? No, that's fine. I can say that. I can offer a perspective and then sort of leave it and walk away. This is discipline, right? Discipline with your attention. You can make the ask and then give it to the other person, whatever they choose to do with it. Notice that I wasn't kind of turning on myself and then getting frustrated that it was bothering me. I just allowed myself to be like, oh, yeah, there goes my attention, focusing on what he's focusing on. I don't want to be focusing on what he's focusing on, right? And that's his deal. And I get to choose mine. So sometimes the answer is yes, you like where your attention is naturally going or automatically going. And sometimes the answer is no. And your job is to discern the difference. The more you do this and you sort of advocate for what you want as much as you can with things that you can control, the more I think in this modern world, you will feel like you are still sort of in charge of your life because you're not being captured by social media, by algorithms, by the news cycle, by politics, by who knows what's going on for you, you know? There's so many things. Um, I sometimes get really nostalgic for growing up in the 70s and 80s where there was very little to capture your attention. It was like a few programs, as kids we were interested in, and they didn't last all night. And then it was like, no, no, these programs aren't for kids, right? You guys need to go into your rooms right now and get ready for bed. And then we were reading or we were on the phone or we were doing other things. This 24/7 access to things that are viral in capturing our negative attention or just it doesn't even have to be negative. Like I said, some things are delightful and funny. I'm thinking of like reels on Instagram, like hilarious, right? Totally attention like tax, right? Like that stuff can keep me scrolling for more than that hour that I give myself on my time limit on my phone. And sometimes I just push that button to ignore it for the day. Yeah. I mean, it happens to me too. But do I want to spend time being like in the latter part of my life with just seeing what other people are content creating, or do I want to spend it writing my next book, writing doing my next podcast, reading books, like I said, learning new things, learning new skills, exploring new places, taking hikes. So you have to take your attention seriously if you want to have a shot at getting to the end of your life and feeling good about how you spent your time and attention. So notice it. That's your homework. Pay attention. Notice when it gets stolen. Notice how you volunteer it sometimes. Notice how often someone else invites you into their drama. Notice how often you get into a thought loop and allow things to just replay over and over and over in your mind without any resistance. How often you might mentally be somewhere other than where your feet actually are. And then ask yourself, is this worth me paying attention to this? What might be a better use of my attention? If it isn't worth your attention, bring it home, redirect again and again and again. And the more you do this, the better you will get at it. The hydrangeas this morning eventually got planted. They're beautiful. The lesson I took away was not about the flowers. It was really realizing that two intelligent adults who really love each other got completely hijacked from their shared idea about what they wanted to accomplish. And they weren't really present, not only for the shared experience, but for each other. It happens. It's human. It's okay. That's not even the problem. The more interesting part is once you notice that it's been hijacked, that you get yourself and your attention back to a place that feels better for yourself, even if it's just marginally better. And you can only really control your own attention, not really other people's. So stay in your lane. Anywhere else other than your own lane is bound to be messier than just focusing on your lane on this. Our biggest problem is not our lack of time or discipline or motivation. I often wonder if our biggest challenge is that we've become very careless and reckless, actually, with our attention. Because where your attention goes, your body goes, your emotions go, your nervous system goes, your decisions go, and eventually your life will go. So today, make it a promise to yourself that you are going to be a better steward of your attention and your days. The more you can attend to the attention you spend in your days, that's how you shape your life to get closer to where you'd like to go. Thank you for joining me today. Come and visit me on Instagram at Thrive in Midlife and let me know how you found the episode and let me know what's on your attention radar these days, maybe intentionally and unintentionally. And we can finish the conversation over there. Stay focused and so long. Hey, if this episode resonated for you, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's HBEARDSLEY.com/subscribe and become a VIP subscriber. You'll learn how to work with me. You'll get 2 free gifts, access to exclusive VIP content, and get a discount on the digital follow-through planner.